things that you guys can think about when you're preparing for your assessment and look at how it improves your business and works for your business. So the first screen there, basically, when we put together the tender for the contract that Sport England put out, the Quest board, who basically guide that tender document, wanted a much more revised approach to the way Quest was delivered. So we moved it to something called Plan, Do, Measure, Review and Impact. So effectively it's about what are you trying to do with your business, how do you do it, so how do you train your team, what resources do you use, what best practice do you refer to, what measurements are you putting in place so that you know whether or not you're achieving your plan, what's the review process, how do you review it, what are you looking at, how often do you review, how do you learn from that, but most importantly of all, what impact does it have, what difference does it actually make. It moved it away from fantastic systems and processes, which of course are really important because it gives you quality, it gives you sustainability, and it gives you consistency in the way you deliver your service. But it moved it from the inputs, those systems and processes, to things that were the outcomes of those things. Why do you do those in the first place? This also is much more aligned to Sport England thinking about incomes and impacts and outcome frameworks. But key to this is really what difference does the centre make to the key stakeholders? You know, why are you doing it? What's the value of it? How are you moving it forward? And ultimately, it was about creating more challenge, getting organisations that have been in Quest for the last 10 years, 15 years to come up with new ways of doing things. So what are the sort of differences that we do make in the centres that we operate? So it's about your stakeholders and looking at your different stakeholders and doing a stakeholder analysis. So who are your stakeholders? Consumers, those are the people that are paying money across the screen, across the till to be able to pay for the activity. You've got your own team, those people that you're developing and growing and getting to deliver the service and deliver the activity in a way that makes customers want to come back. Some of you operate through local authorities, some of you will be within the private sector, so you've got shareholders, and some of them might actually have single owners of those organisations. So what are they trying to achieve? What's the difference that you're making for them? You then have the local area in which you operate, so the people that live near you, the people that travel to you, the other organisations that are in those local areas, such as schools or women's institutes or those types of organisations. How are you making a difference to national agendas, the types of things that Sport England are looking for or the county sports partnerships are looking at, and then what difference are you making to the sector? So what contribution are you actually making to make the sector think differently, to do things differently, and to grow and to continue to supply a fantastic service? So what I wanted to do first was just try and think of some examples of impact, and this is taken from a LinkedIn article actually about Sheffield International Venues. And what Sheffield International Venues are challenged to do is actually generate the number of bed nights within Sheffield. So they're trying to increase the number of people that stay in Sheffield. So it's not just about the quality of the facility they put on, it's not about how clean it is, it's also the fact that it attracts these types of activities and events that bring usage to the buildings, but also bring a lot of revenue and a lot of profile to the city itself. So the BUCS, the British Universities and Colleges Sports Nationals, so that's the competition, and the Sainsbury's Schools Games in 2013 will bring effectively 7,500 people into the city for over 6 days. Now that has a big impact on the city centre itself, on the hotels, on the restaurants, on it as a tourist destination. And as the quote says there, it enhances the reputation as a leading world sports event destination. So it will produce hotel business and it will produce restaurant business and cafe business, but it also shows off the facilities to the rest of the world. Just as all of us sat and were astounded by watching things like archery at Lord's during the Olympics, it raises the profile of those venues, raises the profile of those cities, and the impact of having great systems and processes in great buildings with great teams delivering them are things like this, the extras. What difference does it actually make? And of course, that's on a very big scale within a big city that's had a lot of investment through the World Student Games to get those facilities to where they are. But of course, there are other types of impact that we can consider that are much more local and much more real for us. So these are types of things that I've heard from doing my assessments around the country about what people have used as impact examples. So the first one here is an outreach exercise in golf clubs, and effectively it was a site that I went to where the fitness team had now started to deliver 2 core stability exercise classes in the local golf club, based on the fact an individual had come in. He was trying to play golf 3 times a week. He couldn't because he hadn't got enough mobility. He was getting old. His joints were getting stiff, etc. So he talked to a fitness instructor about how that fitness instructor could help him through using the gym and things. And the instructor thought, well, actually, if you're having these types of problems, are there anybody else in your club that's having the same types of problems? And the guy said, yeah. So they went down, and now this fitness instructor works with 18 ladies and gentlemen in a golf club twice a week, and the impact that's had is those golfers are now playing golf 3 times a week instead of twice a week. The golf club is really pleased, and of course the centre has got a venue to promote new activities and that type of stuff. The excluded kids given a chance was something I experienced in Northern Ireland, a place called Limavady. I know from my list that Barry was supposed to be on the list, but I haven't seen him today. But basically, I was leaving the site after the first day of the assessment, and a lad walked up to me with a hoodie and earrings and tattoos and a big dog on a lead, and basically said, are you the Quest assessor? And I said, well, yeah, I am. And he said, well, this place is absolutely fantastic. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I got kicked out of school about 6 months ago, and as part of a program that this centre's taking part in, we come and we have some education in the leisure centre, but we also take part in activity. And the centre has also given us a National Pool Lifeguard qualification and a First Aid at Work certificate, and now I've got some voluntary hours here. And as he's telling me this, a young lad comes around in a wheelchair, and they start talking to each other, and the lad in the wheelchair said, look, you need to know this guy is taking me swimming, and this centre is so fantastic that they've actually said he doesn't have to pay to take me swimming. And you just think, right, okay, this organisation's looked at an opportunity to hire out some space, to make this excluded kids education, so they've got a classroom, but they've taken it one step further. They've gone, actually, what can we do to make a difference to these kids' lives, and how does that make a difference to the community in which we live? And then, of course, we've got simple stuff like, customers coming into us and they want to take out a membership, and we sit down and we talk about their goals and their needs. And they tell us they want to get fit, and when we start digging, it's actually because they're getting married in 6 months' time and they want to fit in that wedding dress. So our impact on their life through our dedicated fitness instructors, the wonderful kit that we've got, the spaces that we've got, the class program that we've got, is not necessarily getting that person fit, but it makes them feel special on their day because we've helped them get there. It's the impact we have. And then, of course, our team. How many people listening to this right now that had the same situation as I had, where I grew through an organisation because of the way the organisation cared about my development, cared about my growth, and gave me opportunities to progress through the organisation. It's had a massive impact on my life, and it's a huge opportunity to have an impact on a lot of others and the service that we deliver. The key, of course, and Quest, I can remember delivering internal Quest assessors courses many years ago, and the mantra was evidence, evidence, evidence. You had to demonstrate evidence. And that's been one of the challenges for us as assessors and for you as facility managers and people working within the sites to actually evidence that impact. And a number of ways that I've seen so far. I did a piece of work in Cheshire, in northeast Cheshire, and basically what they did over lunchtime was they got their customer forum together and they had lunch with me. So they sat and they talked about all of the things that the centre was doing, how the centre manager interacted with all of the people on the forum and how their ideas were listened to. So I was able to have evidence of the impact that centre was having directly from the customers, and that was really powerful. You could, of course, think about press releases, because impact shows through your press release. So if you've, for instance, taken that child from a position where they were being excluded from mainstream education, they're now getting an education, potentially got a job, you should be able to get some press coverage from that. So press releases can be quite useful when you're evidencing impact. There are interviews, of course. I can sit down and talk to your team, I can sit down and talk to your customers, and I can sit and talk to your stakeholders. So bring those types of people into the assessment process and let me talk to the individuals that you worked with working in physical activity within your physical activity strategy or within the primary healthcare areas. The other side of it, of course, is the increases in your outcomes. The outcomes of the measurement. So you can demonstrate the fact that you've generated more income because of the action you've put in place. You can demonstrate greater levels of participation. And potentially, because you've worked so hard and proved how well you do things, you may get more investment. And of course, one of the big ones at the moment is Net Promoter Score, NPS. Can you demonstrate that your measures are generating newer and higher and better Net Promoter Scores? Because Net Promoter is a really interesting measure of how people feel and how people think about the services that you deliver. So just as a matter of interest, is there any stories that anybody else has got out there that maybe you could type into the chat box and I could share with others? Sarah's just asked, and I think it's my fault, Sarah, not yours. What are impact boards? An organisation I'm currently working with is basically displaying within the corridors of the route from the team area to poolside, an impact board. And effectively, it's a notice board on the side of the wall, and it's basically showing what people have done. So, for example, one of the team members is really into his environmental issues, and there's an email that says thank you to this individual for all the work they've done to improve the environmental standards, and there's things like photos of the new recycling bins that he's managed to purchase. There's the difference they've made in water consumption over the last 6 months. There's also some stuff there. It's a university I'm working at, so there's some messages from students saying thank you to those people that have helped them with strength and conditioning and things like that. So the impact board is really trying to communicate with the rest of your team the types of things that you're doing and doing successfully to help get people to understand what impact is all about. I hope that answers your question, Sarah. Your typing skills are better than mine, Sarah. Thank you for that. Is there any other stories? Has anybody else got any questions or stories that may help others understand impact or that you would like to know about? There's no typing going on, so I'm going to assume that there isn't anything that you guys want to share with us. So I shall continue, but if there are questions, please type them in the chat room box. One of the big areas for improvement that we're starting to, I think, repeat in some of the assessments that I'm doing is getting people to think about planning for impact. All too often we plan the outputs, we plan the numbers, so an increase in income or an increase in participation or a reduction in expenditure. But if we were to consider what are our outcomes, what are we trying to do as part of our planning process, it may help us to understand the measures we need to put in place to know if we've got there or not. But it'll also influence the actions that we have to put in place to achieve those outcomes. So often people will say we've got to increase fitness membership by 100 members as an example, and the actions are about marketing and they're about promotion and things like that. However, if we were to say we want our Net Promoter Score, as an example, to be 80%, we have to think about things that we do differently rather than just by putting out a marketing or a promotional campaign. To get a promotional score or a Net Promoter Score of 80%, as an example, we've got to do a lot of work with our customers' feedback processes. So how do we get back to our customers and let them know what we've done about it? We have to do work with our teams, so how they build rapport, how they maximize the things they say to customers so that customers are thinking, yep, this is the place that I am happy to participate in, but I also want my friends and relatives to participate here as well. If our outcomes were to get 300 kids to have the ability to swim 50 meters rather than we want 300 kids on our swim scheme, you think differently about the way the organization progresses kids. You think about the skills that they need to do things. So thinking about the outcome rather than the output when we're planning can make a difference to the whole Quest process and to your processes in reviewing your business. And one of the ways I try to get people to think about this is saying, what is it that you want your stakeholders to say about you in a year's time? What do you want the things that get people to review you as an individual as a benefit? I don't know if you can read these, but Caroline's got a message she's typed up here. It says, one centre I visited had a dwarf, I hope that's PC, who wanted to do powerlifting. The manager adapted a bench, got the dwarf's dad qualified as a coach, and the dwarf represented GB in the Paralympics. Absolutely, that's a huge impact on that person's life. And it's more than just a member on that 300 extra member list that we were talking about. So to go back, what do you want your stakeholders to say about you as an organisation, as a business? What do you want the local education system to say about you? Your contribution to their ability to get kids through the national curriculum, etc. So planning activity that will get you there with an outcome built in. And the other thing, of course, is we've got to ask the question, what's in it for us? Why are we doing these things? What's the benefit of that? And one of the biggest misses that I think organisations have is actually using the things that we achieve to our advantage. So how are we using advocacy? How are we getting people to talk about us? How are we informing of that? Are we using Facebook? Are we using Twitter to get people to share our message and share our successes? Using those things to encourage others to participate. If you consider what a Weight Watchers poster looked like, it always has, this is what I look like at the beginning and this is what I look like now. And normally in the second photograph they're stood with 2 legs in one trouser leg instead of having the trousers they had earlier. But how are we using those types of images, those types of stories on our websites, in our promotional activity, in notice boards around the building, that is encouraging others to participate, making people realize that actually I can do this. I don't need to get fit to go to the gym, because actually that's what they're going to do. And the other side, of course, is encouraging others to fund by getting these things right, by sharing our stories, by using press releases, by sharing this on advocacy boards around the building. Will others think, actually, this is an organisation that can do these things, and it is worth funding them so that they can do it to a greater level or to more value? The story about Limavady and the work with the excluded kids has led to a huge amount of money from a community health fund to help that business start looking at how they can help the mental health of people in that area as well as their physical health, all because of the success of getting involved with the excluded kids. This is my last slide. I've got questions and answers for you guys and also the website, so you can have a look at the latest stuff, and that's the website that the recording of this session will be on if you want to hear it again, or for those of you unfortunately you couldn't get sound, we'll be able to pick up the sound on that. Are there any questions? Darren, I can see you're typing, so I shall wait for that to come through. Darren, are you typing an email, because that hasn't come through to me? It's very odd doing all this talking and not actually knowing whether you're out there or not, smiling or grimacing or being angry with me. Yeah, I think Darren must have been writing an email because the message hasn't come through. Has anybody else got any questions? Okay, well, I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions. We will go on at 2 o'clock for Caroline, who's going to do a piece on stretch for you, so talking to you about how you can really start showing the capabilities of your organisation and the people that you've got working for you. Okay, so there are no questions there, so I'm going to draw this session to a conclusion. Thank you all very much for listening, and if you want to stay online, you'll be able to listen to Caroline at 2 o'clock. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.